And right here, as you see, this is a map to show you all the different mounds that exist in the state of Mississippi. Holly Springs, Fair Mounds, Bear Creek Mound, Owl Creek Mounds, Jaketown Mounds, the Tepiu-aui-Ra Mound, Boyd Mounds, Pocahontas Mound, and at the bottom, Grand Village Mounds, right above Louisiana. And then you have Emerald Mound, that's on the other side, on the left side, near Louisiana. And then you have Winterville Mounds, that is close to Arkansas. And on here you see what they call platform mounds, where you see the mound, and then it has a stairway, and then on top of that you see a house. Now this is an example of how our ancestors had lived and one of the uses of their mounds. It says, to the advocate, educate, and support humanity towards a full realization of protection of human rights is the mission of Paleo-American.com. It says, our purpose is to educate on the living legacy and contribution of Negroids in the Americas, better known as Paleo-Americans, to educate the private and public sector on human rights, including its value, is the purpose of Paleo-American. Now, let's look at the store. Okay, so now, as you see here, guys, this is a book that you should get. It is called The Paleo-American, a primer on ancient American history. And as you see, it's $20. And you can get it on the website paleo-american.com. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to go over to where Paleo-Americans first, where they are in the, or where they used to be in the UN. Okay, now you see here it says ESO-net. This is underneath the indigenous side of the United Nations. And it says Tepiu-aui-Ra Indigenous Forum, NGO. NGO stands for non-governmental organization, guys. And they participated in the 11th session of the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues on May 7th through the 18th of 2012. Okay. And it says Tepiu-aui-Ra Declaration. We, in our indigenous identity, style our collective Tepiu-aui-Ra. We claim and declare the right of self-determination of our political status. We particularly and uniquely determine our political status as Paleo-Indian Moundbuilders and American nationals. We further declare our right to be free from discrimination and forced assimilation against our indigenous claim and against our indigenous identity as Aboriginal Americans. We hereby exercise our sovereign rights granted by natural law, the supreme law of this land, and international law. Values and principles. 1. We as Paleo-American mound builders affirm our foundation as indispensable towards the assistance in creating a more peaceful and prosperous and just world. 2. We recognize we have a collective responsibility to uphold the principles of human dignity, equality, and equity at a local, national, and global level. As leaders, we have a duty to all peoples of the world, in particular, the children who hold the fate of the world in their hands. 3. We affirm our commitment to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, which have proved timeless and universal. Indeed, their relevance and capacity to inspire have increased as nations. Peoples have become increasingly interacted and interdependent. 4. To dedicate ourselves to uphold the sovereign equality of the Tepiu-aui-Ra, respect for its territorial integrity and political independence, resolution of its disputes by peacefully means and conformity with the principles and justice of international law, non-interference in the internal affairs of states, respect for human rights and the fundamental freedoms, respect and the equal rights of all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, and the cooperation in solving internal issues as an economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian character. 5. Consider certain fundamental values to be essential to internal relations in the Tepiu-aui-Ra. These include freedom. Men and women have the right to live their lives and raise their children in dignity, free from hunger and from fear of violence, oppression, or injustice. Democratic and participatory governance based on and will of the people best assures these rights. Tepians, before natural law, are equal solidarity. Internal challenges will be managed in a way that demonstrates the costs and the burdens fairly in accordance with the basic principles of equity and social justice. Those who suffer or who benefit less deserve help from those who benefit the most. Tolerance, respect one another in all their diversity of belief, culture, language, and differences are cherished as a precious asset of humanity. Respect for nature in pursuit of a sustainable development. Tepians care for all living species and natural resources. Shared responsibility, peace, security, economic, social development are shared responsibilities of Tepians. Development, Tepians help to create an environment at local, national, and international levels alike, which is conducive to its development. Tepians are committed helpers towards an open, transparent, equitable, rule-based, predictable, and non-discriminatory trading and financial system. All Tepians complete a full course of initial autonomous schooling and have equal access to all levels of education. We solemnly affirm to create an environment of self-sufficiency and assist the entire human family in a universal aspirations for peace, cooperation, development. We therefore pledge our unstinting support for those common objectives of our determination to achieve the model, the helpers.
Actually, I do. A lot of the research and the reading that I do, whether it's for my classes or for another book that I'm writing, really even just my hobby enjoyment reading is really kind of focused around anthropology and archaeology. And there is a good book. I'm going to go over here and pull the title. It's a really good book about the Olmec civilization in Central America region. And it's a book written by an author by the name of Amber Vanderwarker. And it's called Farming, Hunting, and Fishing in the Olmec World. Really a good book. It's one of the best ones that I've seen. It came out in 2006. And in this book, she has one of the best, I guess you could say, concentration of various tidbits of information about these ancient Negroid peoples. For instance, she talks about the types of foods that they ate, the types of animals that they ate, the types of fruits and vegetables that they ate, how they organized their cities to accommodate rotation of crops around the outside of the village area, how they were actually able to cure seeds to last 100 years. That's the type of stuff that I'm interested in, like.
Okay, we're going to read some scientific evidence about the Paleo-Indians, Paleo-Americans, of them having a different type of phenotype from the Native Americans that came over from Eurasia via the Bering Strait. Okay, so it says craniomorphology of early Americans from Lago Santa, Brazil. Implications for the Settlement of the New World by Walter A. Nevis and Mark Hub. It says here, comparative morphological studies of the earliest human skeletons of the New World have shown that whereas late prehistoric, recent, and present Native Americans tend to exhibit a cranial morphology similar to late and modern Northern Asians, short and wide neurocrania, high orthogonic and broad features, and relatively high and narrow orbits and noses. The earliest South Americans tend to be more similar to the present Australians, Malaysians, and sub-Saharan Africans. Narrow and long neurocrania, pronatic long faces, and relatively low and broad orbits and noses. It says, however, most of the previous studies of early American human remains were based on small crania samples, wherein we compare the largest sample of early American skulls ever studied, 81 skulls of the Lago Santa region, and worldwide data sets representing global morphological variation in humans through 3 different multivariate analyses. The results obtained from all multivariate analyses confirm a close morphological affinity between South American Paleo-Indians and extant Austro-Malaysian groups, supporting the hypothesis that 2 distinct biological populations could have colonized the New World in the Pleistocene or Holocene transition. I believe that's how that's pronounced. Okay. So that's the time period that they're speaking of. And I'm going to have this link below. So they're basically telling you that they were well aware of the fact that you had 2 different groups of people here whose skulls are vastly different. And they're saying that the Native American people that came over the Bering Strait, that they look like the people from Northern Asia, whereas the Paleo-Indians, on the other hand, look more like people from Australia, Malaysia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, which we know these people have a Negro facial structure, okay? And they all share, a darker complexion, and they have, varying levels of curly hair or wavy hair, okay? Just like our people do. And so this is scientific evidence that we are the Paleo-Indians, that we are the Paleo-Americans. So I will have this link below, just like I will have the link to the interview that Nahe had did. I will have that link below, as well as his book and the other book. I will have all those links below so you guys can study this and have knowledge about your ancestors. Okay, I hope you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I'm out.